All right, guys, it is 7:31, so let's get started here. A few things before we get going. You're probably wondering why there's a picture of my son and I from last summer, and you're probably wondering why there's a little circle over his face. And that is because my ex-wife and I have decided that until he has a choice, we do not want to, put it out there until he has a little bit more of a say in it. And so a little bit of a privacy thing, but that was a big deal being on the lake that day and wake surfing. So pretty exciting day for us. And let's get started here. All right. So the title of tonight's presentation is How to Heal Your Child from the Inside Out and Help Them Reach Their Potential. So welcome, everybody. This is week 1 of 6 of the masterclass. My name is Marty Orefice, and I'm going to go over with you how I helped my son, who's diagnosed with ASD, heal and reach his full potential using nutrition and supplementation. Now, a quick note on that is that full potential is different for everybody, and just want you to know that some people can have full recoveries and everything else, and my son still has some processing challenges and everything like that, but he is free from all of the stuff that was plaguing him before. So I'm guessing for a lot of you, this isn't the first thing you've done to help your child. And the first thing I want to mention is that you struggled to help your child in the past. It's not your fault. There's a lot of information out there. It can be confusing, and many times there's just like so much information. It's information overload, and that keeps us from success because we don't really know who to trust and what to do, and that's okay. And I know that you can do this. You just need the right person to explain it to you and put it in a format that's simple and easy to follow. Big Pharma wants you to think that there's nothing to do to help your child. They have their own reasons for wanting to think that, but it's not true. And if you've ever thought that big food companies and chemical companies are trading profits for your health, you're probably right. And they're definitely not going to benefit from what I'm going to teach you in this training. I care about helping you heal your child, and I know that you have a dream and are committed to help your child reach their potential. If you didn't, you wouldn't be on this call. And I want to show you how to make that happen during this training. So I have 2 goals for the training. And one is to give you everything that I've learned, the information, the strategies, the tactics, so you can implement a nutrition and supplementation lifestyle that supports your child's natural ability to heal. I say lifestyle because this is a lifestyle. You're going to be changing some things in your life, and it's not a, quote unquote diet or things like that. Subconsciously, when we use words like diet, that tells our mind that there's lack, and we never stick with things when there's lack. And the other thing is to get you guys wins. I candidly want to see you guys come out of this with success stories and see your child progress. And if you implement what I tell you, you will definitely see a difference. I guarantee that. And it doesn't matter if you just got a diagnosis, you've been around the block for 20 years. The information has the potential to fundamentally shift your family's reality. And, before we get started, just know this is the disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. I'm a father that has done a ton of research and experiments and had tremendous results. And everything in here expressed is my opinion. So do your own research. I encourage that. All right. So my son was diagnosed shortly before his 3rd birthday. And at that point, life was extremely difficult. Just confusion. I didn't know who to turn, who to talk to. No one really knew anything that made sense for me. And throughout the whole thing, it was just like I saw my son in pain all the time. And, people talk about the behaviors and things like that. And I saw pain and the meltdowns and everything else. And I just wanted to take that away. I wanted to have my son back. I wanted to do the things that a father does with his son. I wanted to wrestle and play and go on trips and, watch him play with his friends and things like that. So I took him to the doctor, and I was in luck because this lovely doctor had just gone to an 11-day autism conference, and he told me so. And he was very, very sure of himself. And he goes, I've just been to the conference. I know everything that's new and the latest and greatest, and there's nothing you can do. Would you like a sucker? And I'm just thinking to myself, like, really? This is who I'm going to get my advice from? You know, and at that point I had started doing a little bit of research, and like sugar causes inflammation in the brain, which, you know, as we're going to get into in future modules, it is like the worst thing you can do is inflame a child's brain more that already has inflammation. So I felt helpless, and I started ABA. I did everything I was supposed to do. And I just didn't like the fact that I felt like we were training him to be a robot, and it was tough. So I had been extremely sick myself, a lot of different issues, adrenal fatigue, hormones were all screwed up, recurring mono, had an ulcer. I couldn't eat, and my gut was it was just a disaster. And I had found some guys on the fringe. They called themselves biohackers, and I started to look into some of their techniques and what they would do. They would use nutrition and supplementation and things like that, breakthroughs in technology and science and all that to control the systems in their body. And then after a short period, I healed myself. And I was like, if I can do this, why can't I help my son using the same techniques and using the same strategies? And that's what I did, and gave it a shot. And it was tough, but after about 30 days, I remember the way that he used to communicate is they call it echolalia, but I would say something and then he would just repeat it back. And I asked him a question, and and he communicated back with me. And, you know, I'm starting to get a little emotional thinking about it, but it's just, I realized at that moment that I was on the right track and I had to continue down that path. So what I did, eliminate toxins, food, water, and air, and give the body the support that it needed through nutrition supplementation. And that's really the basis of what we're going to be doing over the next 6 weeks, to show you exactly how to do that. And it's less than 3 years later now, and because it was right before his 3rd birthday, and my son is free from the pain and he's thriving. He looks people in the eye. He's extremely loving, social, and happy. Doesn't have the sensory issues that he did. He's active. We can go on trips together, and I don't know, I have my son back, and it's been amazing. So throughout this journey, I've just grown so much. And about 2.5 years ago, I just had this like feeling in my heart that I want to help people that are going through similar things. When I talked to people that were sitting in the waiting room at ABA, and talked to the therapist and talked to doctors and everyone that I talked to. I even went to, you know, special nutrition programs that they had that were putting on by this autism center, and no one was talking about the impact that food had on an individual. So as we get jumping in here, just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be spending 6 weeks together, and everything is Wednesdays at 7:30. We're going to be on for about an hour, maybe it'd be 45 minutes, maybe, you know, an hour and 5, but it's going to be roughly an hour. And we are making recordings of everything. So we are actually putting together a members area for you, which is pretty cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the recordings, we're going to put it in the members area. And if we have any research that we talk about, or any supplements or anything else, we're going to put the links in the members area. So you're always going to be able to come back to that and reference the materials. That said, make being on live a priority. I've been to a ton of trainings, and I always get way more out of it when I'm live. So, and I know that the same will hold true for you. Get a notebook, go to a quiet place, put the phone away. I mean, this is if you can, I understand. Close Facebook, guys. Commit 1 hour to go all in each week. You may get like a small nugget or a big one that will change your child's life forever. And I think that's worth committing 1 hour to. Each week is going to build on the week prior. So it's imperative that you watch and understand the concepts being discussed. And as we're going here, put questions in the chat bar, and I'm going to stick around after we're done and answer all the questions you have. Within the limit, if it's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night past my bedtime, you know, I might I might cut you off. But yeah, just put your questions in as you think of them. Just throw them in the chat bar, and I'll do my best to get to everything. So I'm going to give you the information. I'm going to give you the steps to take. I'm going to give you everything you need. Then it's up to you. And you may be hearing some words and terminology that's new. And like anything else, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to get used to those things. And I'll do my best to keep concepts as simple as possible. If I get down in the weeds a little bit too much, let me know. But I'm doing my best to keep things as simple as possible. So what we're going to do is jump into a few key concepts. And if you're on here, obviously you have experience with what autism is, but there are some key differences with the way autism is traditionally treated. What autism is not is a behavioral disorder. Autism is a social relational disorder. And that's really important because 99% of the time it's treated as a behavioral disorder. We say, how do we eliminate this behavior and train our child to do something else? And autism is social relational, where every behavior your child exhibits is a symptom. And trying to extinguish any type of behaviors doesn't address the actual cause of autism. A quick example, let's say you look at your child and they're scratching their arm. And you're like, hey, stop scratching your arm. Like, no, you hand them an ice cream cone so that they can't scratch while they're eating. You know, you tie their arm behind their back. Whatever you do, you know, you're trying to get them to stop. You try everything. Or you could just walk up and look at their arm and see that they have a mosquito bite. Rub a little cream on, and now it doesn't itch. So my method involves going one step deeper to treat the disorder from the inside out. All right, now this is certainly controversial, but when we look at the cause and why it's important, this is my theory. I've studied a tremendous amount on this, and kids aren't typically born with autism. You know, they're going along, everything's going good, and then typically one day there's a tipping point where development stops and, you know, the milestones go backwards. And I believe that there are many things that contribute to that tipping point. There's, you know, all the toxins and the food and everything else. And some people say, oh, you know, it's vaccines and that's what causes it and everything else. I don't stand there where I think that's like everything that causes it. I'm not 100% sold on that. That said, I think it could be one of many potential tipping points. So here's a common scenario with vaccines where I think, you know, a lot more damage is done. Okay, so quick lesson on the body. The most powerful antioxidant in the body is called glutathione. Now, don't worry about the name. You don't have to remember it. We're going to be talking about it in future weeks. But just know that it is the most powerful antioxidant. So think about it like the Roomba vacuum, you know, those little robotic vacuums. So think about it like that. And it goes around your body and it flushes out all of the bad stuff, free radicals and toxins and things like that. So now you go to the doctor, your child gets a vaccine, and the doctor tells you, you know, when there's a fever, which there typically is, give them Tylenol. So what's interesting is Tylenol stops your body's ability to create glutathione. Now, typically, you know, when you're creating a toxic environment, you want your body to flush out. So it's kind of like dumping sand on your house, and then, you know, the same Roomba analogy, you know, you take the battery out of it. You're creating this toxic pool in the body and in the brain at this exact time you need a deep clean, which could cause a tipping point. So one other major factor is gut dysfunction. And if you haven't heard that term before, you're going to become intimately aware of it. We're going to touch on a little tonight, not really. In the next few weeks, we're going to be getting into that. And, you know, with recent discoveries, our gut controls everything. It controls endocrine system, it controls brain function, serotonin, it's our immune system. And so if we look at our immune system in particular, our gut controls 70% of our immune system. So typically kids that have ASD have compromised guts. And so environmental toxins in food can easily push a compromised immune system over the edge. So you have excess toxins compromised immunity, and you put them together, and there's a toxic environment where the body can't deal with. And at some point, there's a tipping point, and it takes the energy that typically goes into growth and development, and it puts it into self-preservation. And at that point, that's when we see high levels of inflammation, the sensory issues come out. And our goal here is to clear that cloud of inflammation and the neurotoxicity and let our child begin to develop again. So the next key concept is taking a look at the why behind the behaviors. So to an inflamed brain in protection mode, sensory inputs can be extremely intense and overwhelming. We know of a traditional tantrum, which is just a kid that's trying to get something that he wants or needs, and he throws a little fit. And as parents of children with ASD, we know the difference between a meltdown. And it was interesting. We did a post on the difference between this, and it was surprising how many people didn't know the actual difference. And a meltdown is triggered to a reaction of feeling overwhelmed when there's too much sensory input. So what you want to do is think about it's like a cup of water. You're filling it, and when it overflows with yelling, hitting, crying, lashing out. And I could tell you story after story of some pretty impressive ones. Well, don't want to burden you with that. Also, stimming. And these are the repetitive behaviors that our kids typically do. And they do that it's a self-soothing mechanism to counteract any overwhelming environment, alleviate high levels of anxiety. It's interesting now that there's research coming out that says that stimming actually has a positive effect on our nervous system. And what do we do when our children finally find something to help them cope with their environment? We tell them to stop. And trust me, I'm the first one to do it. The concept of healing from the inside out in this whole process created this environment where my son's meltdowns went from 3 before 9 a.m. I mean, I remember locking myself in closets and crying, and the bathroom, just I couldn't take it. I literally can't remember the last time he's had a meltdown. I've had times at Walt Disney World where people thought I was kidnapping my son, and they called security. I've had ABA therapists, in tears because they can't handle it. And healing from the inside out has dramatically taken away that pain and helped with that. So the next key concept to go over, and a lot of these concepts, what we're doing is we're building a foundation. So we can think the same, we can have the same language. So we start to get into real nitty gritty. We're on the same page. So ABA versus biomedical treatments. ABA works directly on behavior and, ensure that, you've had your kids in it. Skills such as looking and listening and imitating and playing and reading and chatting and, interacting with other kids. Biomedical treatment involves, taking food and supplementation and help get the body out of protection mode and improve brain and body health. The really cool thing about this is that once you get the body out of protection mode, everything that you're teaching starts to accelerate. So my son was first diagnosed, I think he was a few years behind at 3. He was, I think, at a 1-year-old level in a lot of the key categories. And once they can start getting out of the protection mode, they just start accelerating their growth. And the way I look at it is, if you've heard the parable in the Bible where you throw the seeds down, throw them onto the road, maybe the sun hits it and gets a little water and it sprouts for a second and then goes away. If you're creating a fertile soil and you're throwing these seeds down and you're teaching and training your child, they can take root and really grow. So that's really powerful. And the most exciting, greatest breakthrough in the last 20th century, what do you think it is? Neuroplasticity. And actually, I'm joking around, but the concept of neuroplasticity is amazing. And this is our brain's ability and capacity to change and adapt throughout our life. Back in the day, everyone thought that our IQ was stable, the way our mind processes stable, everything. We found out that it changes all the time throughout our life. So why is this important, especially for our kids? It means that their brains continue to grow and can acquire new skills throughout life. We initially thought, I think it was at the age of 7, that brain stops developing as fast, and it's much harder. And now it's proven we can literally rewire our brain. There's a study done in meditation. I meditate, and after 11 hours of meditation, they've done brain scans on people, and the prefrontal cortex, which is like our reasoning in our mind, visibly gets thicker. So you can make your brain bigger by doing different things. And so in an environment where we have children that have had challenges, for me at least, it gives me tremendous hope. So let's talk about the medical community for a second. So you heard my experience with doctors and, hey, have a lollipop. And that turned me off. And am I against the medical community as a whole? Absolutely not. I encourage you to find a doctor that specializes in autism. What you can do is look for a DAN doctor, D-A-N, in your area. If you're not familiar with what that is, you can look it up online and find one in your area, or just find a doctor that specializes in autism. A couple tips for that is just make sure that you question them why they're doing it. A lot of people will get into it because, they want just a new stream of income. And it's better to find someone that is really an expert that's been doing this for a while. So that said, I feel that the majority of the medical community is flawed in how they view autism. They look at it in systems, in isolation, and not how all the other parts of the body affect each other. And there are some incredible doctors now that are, coming out, and, there's neurologists that are talking about the importance of the gut. And I hope that the rest of the medical community follows suit, because it will definitely get a lot more help for our kids. The other thing is that there's big money in medicine, and the big money is because everything is designed to treat symptoms and not the cause. And doctors walk around with their prescription pad and they're just looking to write scripts, and that's great, when there's something that they can treat. But the example I like to use is that when you're walking around with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And with the doctors, it's the same way. Nutrition and supplementation remove control from Big Pharma and give us the power, guys. Now, this one is the one that I think it's the funniest, and it's just that we've been getting this false dogma jammed down our throats for years and years. Calories in, calories out. Fat is bad. The food pyramid is healthy. I think everyone would agree that eating like a loaf of bread, the bottom part of the food pyramid, isn't the best thing for you. Yet that's still what's recommended. So if your doctor tells you and your child, or what your child eats doesn't impact his autism, find a new doctor, because he doesn't understand what's fundamentally happening in the body with autism. All right, let's separate myth from fact, shall we? Wouldn't this be more well known if it works? The medical community is not in the business of healing. It's in the business of treating symptoms. And as we just talked about, misinformation is the norm, especially when it's how food affects our children's bodies. And there's a lot of variables that aren't talked about. For example, someone said, I tried to go gluten-free and my kid gained 20 pounds in 2 months, or that meat or fat is bad. And the reality is that everything depends. In isolation, some of these techniques just don't make sense. Like if you go gluten-free and you're eating junk food, and then you just replace the junk food with something else, when you start to look at the ingredients, it could be worse for you than what you were eating before. So there's a lot of variables, and news and articles online like to make things very simple, and it's not. So what we're going to do is take a look at everything and how it fits together. The other thing is that there's been some incredible major discoveries within the last 5 years. Things like the gut-brain connection. They're finding out certain strains of bacteria in your stomach, they control, how you interact with people, how your eye contact and things like that. I mean, it's just incredible things that are going on right now. The issue is that in order to get this to be common knowledge, it takes large scale clinical trials. And these things take years and years, even decades to complete, because one, you have to go in and you have to, write a proposal and get money for it. And then select on, it's a tremendously involved process. So we find things that work and we try it. And if it helps us, then that's what we do. We don't wait for someone else to come in and tell us that that's what we need to do. We're still 30 years behind with fat is bad in the food pyramid here. So here's another great one. The government protects us and wouldn't let us buy things that harm us. And, yet we look at any major sporting event and the biggest sponsors are beer and McDonald's. There's this belief that something's on the shelf at a store, that it's safe and it doesn't affect us. And the system in the US, guys, it's different than other parts of the world. It's when there's 80,000 chemicals in use, and it's innocent until proven guilty, which means food manufacturers and companies that are creating products can use these and just assume that they're safe until someone on the outside says, hey, these aren't safe. Everywhere else in the world, I mean, not in the developed world, says we're guilty until proven innocent. We have to say, yes, we're putting this in our food. This is healthy, and we're going to be going over a lot of different products, things that our kids love and eat that are banned around the world because they create, they're created with incredible toxins. So quick stat, the 80,000 chemicals used in the US, 200 have been tested for safety, and only 5 have been regulated by the EPA. That just still blows my mind. It's incredible. All right. I grew up eating like that, and I'm fine. Oh my goodness, I hear this all the time. The reality is, people, things have changed. And let me just ask you, are you fine though? Are you really? Just Google like trends in obesity, diabetes, cancer, neurodegenerative disease. Like everything is just up and to the right. It's like watching the stock market fly. Autism is an epidemic. And one MIT researcher predicts that 50% of kids and 80% of boys will have autism by 2032. I mean, that's just staggering. Whether it is or not, whether that happens or not, that's the trend. I mean, that's where we're going. So things have changed with our food for sure. And I'm just going to give you one example. The majority of our crops are sprayed with something called Roundup. It's a weed killer. And the active ingredient in that is called glyphosate. And it's another one of those terms. Don't remember it. Don't worry. We're going to be going into this quite a bit more, but we'll get in a lot more detail. Okay, so we sprayed this weed killer on the crops. And from the time in 1996 to now, we're spraying 15 times more glyphosate on our corn and grain. Why? What happens is weeds become resistant. We have to just spray more and more and more. In addition to that, we're using it for other things. We're taking it, not even to kill weeds anymore. We're just spraying it directly onto wheat to make the harvest a little bit more convenient. If there's a freeze coming, we just throw it on it, kill it. And so everything that we're consuming is just in higher and higher levels of these chemicals. The EPA increased what it considers a safe amount of glyphosate exposure by a factor of 17. All right, so 1996, this is what's safe. And then less than 20 years later, now almost 20 times the amount is safe. Like, how does that happen? How do they think one thing is safe? And the reality is it's not. I'm going to show you a quick graph, which is, this one just blows my mind. Okay, so what this is, autism prevalence in 6-year-olds and how much glyphosate, the weed killer, is sprayed. And this is, over time. You can see the years along the bottom. Now, one thing to note on here, correlation is not causation. You cannot say that just because, both are going up and to the right, you could say the same thing about a lot of different things that, are accelerating now. That said, when you look at what happens with autism in the body and you look at what glyphosate does in the body, and trust me guys, I'm going through this stuff. This is the MIT researchers slide deck. We're going into everything where it's in vaccines and how it's working. And just the more and more I'm learning about it, the more and more it blows my mind that this is allowed. So, all right, probably my favorite of all. Food and supplementation don't matter. Let kids be kids. There's nothing you can do. They just love it. The truth is, guys, diet fundamentally changes our biology. Changes our gut biome, gene expression, brain function, hormones. Consider this. What we eat and drink affects our energy levels, susceptibility to infections, propensity for different types of cancer, type 2 diabetes, you have Crohn's, celiac disease, condition of our arteries, likelihood of heart attack and stroke. If you eat a peanut, and you have a strong peanut allergy, you can die, okay? And don't get me started on alcohol. It definitely impacts our brain function, judgment, everything else. Even just doing one small drink. Now you listen to that and you're like, okay, sure. Yeah, I get that. None of what I said is controversial. So why is the fact that diet can affect the extra sensitive brains and bodies of children on the autism spectrum still in dispute? I'm just going to repeat that again. Why is the fact that diet can affect the extra sensitive brains and bodies of the children on the autism spectrum still in dispute? That's incredible to me. However, that's why we're here, right? Because we understand that and we're willing to make a change. So I hear this one quite a bit too. But Marty, it's too hard. I get it. I really do. The truth is that change is not easy. And especially when you're starting out, the first few days or possibly weeks can be tough. The reality is our kids are addicts. And I'm going to get into this next week, but we are too. The way that food affects our brain affects the same receptors as morphine and opium. So changing and moving away from things like that can be tough. And when I started these changes, I was a single dad and I was still trying to figure out how to cook for myself, clean, take care of myself. I'm a grown-ass man, but let me tell you, it was not easy. I had to figure this stuff out. And if I can do it, trust me, guys, you can. I always say, when you're looking at this big thing, how do you eat an elephant? And it's simple, one bite at a time. All you can do is take one step at a time. And that's why I've split out the class the way it is, so that we can just take a short time, and cover key concepts. And then after each one, just take small bite-sized actions so that we can eat this elephant one bite at a time. Now, even though it was a challenge, the interesting thing was that my life got way easier. It really did. It took a little bit of time, and then things just started to get easier. Coming down the stairs, getting into the car, everyday tasks, all that just got easier. And in my opinion, my child's future was worth the challenge, and I feel that you believe the same thing. The next myth, I've tried XYZ in the past and didn't notice the difference. And you can put anything into XYZ you want, anything. The reality is it doesn't matter. Gluten-free, for example, I used that earlier. And I told you most common things don't work in isolation. And more importantly, they don't attack the most important piece, which is if we're shifting diet especially, there's cravings that go along with it. And this is completely different. This is not all white knuckling and, just willpower and I'm going to do it and all that stuff. It's not all that, because we work with our biology to reduce cravings and help us succeed. When my gut was screwed up and my son's, literally, I kid you not, he would wake up in the morning and he'd look up at me and just go, goldfish, 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 goldfish. Like, he was a complete addict. And I get it because I was the same way, but I would say pizza, pizza, craving it all the time. And once we fixed the dysfunction, the craving stopped. My child will only eat fill in the blank. I get it. My son wouldn't eat anything either. His diet consisted of macaroni and cheese, pizza, milk, goldfish, all the typical kids' food. And I'll say this right now. I realize that there are severe cases where sensory issues and there's issues with actual eating and, solid food and things like that. So I am not talking about you. I'm talking about everyone else. Okay. So if I'm a little tough on this one, it's not meant to be an insult. I realize that there's extreme circumstances and everybody's situation is a little bit different. That being said, there are strategies and things that we can go over, or that we're going to go over, that will help you transition someone who only eats a certain type of food. And as we work on healing the body in conjunction with a shift, that transition becomes a little bit easier. The reality is right now it's like the best time for quality food and replacements for the crap that we normally eat. I have a killer pancake recipe that I think we probably eat 3 to 4 times a week. And I'll make a double batch. And if I can cook it, trust me, you can. It's like 3 ingredients and just completely incredible. So at some point I'm going to be, throughout this, I'll record a video and post the recipe and things like that. Kids always eat pancakes. I'll tell you that much. There's always things you can do. And I have a certain core group of recipes and things that we do that are easy to make and that are really good for you. So there's replacements for the crap. And obviously with any of this stuff, check with the doctor. I will say one thing though, is that as a parent, and if there is no other, craziness going on, you can't be scared to let the kid go to bed hungry. You can't. It just is what it is. If you put something in front of them and they don't eat it, the way I did it is you would go to bed hungry. And the next day, he knew that I would do that. So guess what? He ate. I understand the fear though. And the fear is if I don't give him something, he's just not going to eat. And then he's going to wither away and die. And trust me, guys, if the dysfunction is fixed, they will eat. And there's things that you can do to transition where, it's not that big of a deal. But in my opinion, you need to be a little bit strong with this one. But we're going to get into that in a little bit later because things get a little bit spicy when it comes to that topic. I know people look at it a little bit differently. So it's way too expensive to eat healthy and change lifestyle. Here's the deal, guys. Pay now or pay later. Better quality food is typically going to be more expensive than lower quality food. That said, we're going to be covering some strategies where the difference won't be that much. maybe a few bucks difference in a meat. Same thing with vegetables. It's not that much. Here's the other really, really cool thing. As you start to cure gut dysfunction and you increase the amount of healthy fats in your diet, you won't get as hungry. I was just getting my hair cut, which, what do you guys think? Looks good, earlier this week. And someone was complaining, and they were like, my kids eat every 1.5 hours. They're in me out of house and home. And like, I used to have that problem, not just with my son, but for me. But I needed 15 different types of snacks. And it was always, feeding the beast. And now the cravings are gone, the snacks are minor, and the quality of food, or the quantity of food, has gone down dramatically. And the reason why, and I'll just touch on it briefly, but we have bacteria in our stomach, and that helps regulate our hormones. It helps break down the food that we eat. And as we get into dysfunction, there's certain bad bacteria in our gut that crave and feed on sugar, simple carbohydrates. So there's a biological reason we crave things. It's because in our gut, that bacteria is, eat me, I want it. And so how do you get rid of it? You starve those guys. When you starve those guys and you replace it with something good, it goes away. So the bottom line is that food quantity goes down. So when my son was 2, I kid you not, and this was almost every night, he would eat an entire box of macaroni and cheese with 2 full glasses of milk for dinner. If he ate that now at 5, he would literally throw up. The body just rejects it. How do I know? Even little things that he used to eat, goldfish. We were at church, they gave him some goldfish on accident, for the snack, and he came out and threw up all over. His body just can't take it. So, and the last one that, I think overall makes, a change of lifestyle and eating better a lot less expensive is doctor bills go down because they get sick less often. Then remember, 70% of the immune system is in the gut. So when that's healed, they're not getting sick as often. I literally can't remember the last time my son was sick, and he is in some cesspools around at amusement parks and things like that. So, and before, he was sick all the time. So just to say that, once you start to heal, a lot of the expense of other things go down. All right. It's too much time. I'm maxed out. I get it. It is crazy. Taking care of a child to begin with, you should be getting gold stars every day. Any type of child that has, any type of challenge, you deserve to, get at least 1 massage a day. The fact is, though, that better behavior saves you time and energy. And I get it. Like, I'm a dad, I'm a business owner. I have to care for a lot of different people. And it does take more time and thought to prep food and to enter situations that I know are going to be challenging. But the changes in behavior and the changes that I see in him and the little man that he's becoming, for me, that more than makes up for it. Went to a water park on Saturday, and before I left, I made food and snacks for us. Those killer pancakes I told you about. And it took a little bit extra time. It would have been much easier to just, grab our stuff and run out of the house and grab something there. But I took the extra time. Maybe it was an extra 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And the difference for him is huge. So overall, though, it does save you time. Trust me. This is where it gets a little spicy, too. Commitment. Change is not easy, especially for our kids. Any type of transition, everything. I've been driving down the road and take the wrong turn, and I feel like it's World War III for the next 45 minutes because I took the wrong road. Change isn't easy. That said, the change that you see in them is worth it. And here's the interesting thing. You can't ask your child to do something that you're not willing to do. You really can't. So are you committed for yourself and for your family to make the changes that are necessary? Now, I'm not talking about 100% perfection all the time. Like, get that out of your head. It's, are you willing to commit and make this happen? So there's a big difference between being interested and committed. Big difference. So interested is reading a blog post. Committed is pulling the pin on a grenade, right? You're all in. When Vikings, there's a picture on the slide there of a ship. When Vikings would land in a new territory, what they do is everyone would get off the boat and they burn their boats. That's commitment. They're going in. They're fighting to the death. They're either going to take over the land or they're going to perish. And, I'm going to show you strategies that may be difficult to implement. And this won't work if you're committed. And what I've always done, which works really well for me, is it's not a decision. I don't have to make the decision. The decision's already made. So when things aren't easy, all I do is just lean on that decision and lean on my commitment to my child. And that makes it a lot easier. So what I'm asking you to do, give me 6 weeks. Give your child 6 weeks. The upside of this is that you can completely change the trajectory of your child's future and make your life way easier. The downside, 6 weeks of being a little bit more mindful. You're investing your time, and I appreciate that. And trust me, I am putting everything I have into creating content for you that's going to be extremely impactful. Process is simple. You commit. You measure results. You adjust. You test. There's no one size fits all. We're going to give you the framework. And what I always do is I always test. If I hear something and it sounds good, I research it, I test the science, and then I test. And the last thing, and trust me, I am not judging you when I say this, but helicopter parenting will not work with this. I understand the need to help the child not feel discomfort, and especially when they have challenges and everything else. And it is this innate desire to give them what they want because that's going to make them happy for the moment. In reality, when it comes to this, it is the worst thing you can do for your child. It really is. Guys, you need to be willing to say no in order to say yes to their future. I'm going to repeat that. You need to be willing to say no in order to say yes to their future. Let that sink in for a minute. And maybe everyone on the, on the training here, they have no problem saying no. But it's been my experience that saying no can be challenging for people. And what I always do is anytime I have to do something challenging, I tie it into a why. And my why is my son. And if I tie it to his future and him reaching his potential and being happy and fulfilled, then I'm going to do whatever it takes. And this is a marathon, not a sprint. Results may take time. This is a lifestyle shift. Like I said earlier, this is not, just, hey, I'm going to go on this special diet. This is more of a lifestyle shift where, it's not just diet. It's, it's the whole package. And, you've got to be in it for the long haul. And I told you, I saw incredible results within 30 days, but I went all in. And I guess, how long it takes or, where you are in the cycle, I can't guarantee anything. I just know that fundamentally from a biological level, this works. So what happens next? Well, since we are back in school, you are going to be getting some homework. So what I want you guys to do, this is a very simple first step, and it's simple for a reason, because I want you guys to get a win. Create a food log. And this is a food log of what your child is eating throughout the day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. And I know at least for me, this would be, all I'd have to do is record one day, and then it would be the rest of the week. And typically, our kids are eating the same things over and over. It's that repetitive nature, of their personalities. So it should be pretty easy. But what this does is a number of things. One, it creates awareness on what's going in. And two, it'll help me to help you come up with different ways to change and grow and make transitioning a little bit easier. Tonight was the foundation. I wanted to, shift some fundamental beliefs, get us speaking the same language, setting that base, because next week we are going to be going in and starting to get really spicy, guys. We're going to be going in, peeling back the layers of the onion, going into process and getting into the nitty gritty. And, some of the topics that we're going to be going into, we talked about it, but how do we heal the brain? How do we heal the gut? How do we avoid toxins? What are those household items that are really poisoning our kids? What are the things that every kid loves that's banned all around the world? How do you go grocery shopping? How do you read labels? What do different labels mean? What supplements do I need to take? Supplements are huge, guys. Huge. There are so many deficiencies. I'm saying typically within ASD, there are so many deficiencies with vitamins and the ability for the body to handle simple tasks, and supplementation is huge. So we need to find out, what are the right supplements? What are the things that are going to have the biggest impact? And we're going to be going through all that and a lot more. So one of the big ones next week is we're going to be going over the gut-brain connection. We talked about it a lot. And if you think about this training as the car, the engine of the entire vehicle is the gut-brain connection. It's the thread that's going to tie all of these conversations that we have together and from here on out. And a lot of what we do with nutrition and supplementation are designed to help heal, because what happens is, because the gut is the central force, I look at it as, within autism, there's gut dysfunction, typically mitochondrial dysfunction, which we'll get into. I know it's like bringing you back to high school science class, but that's just, our cellular energy and inflammation. And, there's the type of inflammation where you sprain an ankle and, your ankle swells up, and that's your body's, what it's doing is it's healing. What I'm talking about is systemic inflammation. And it really is the core of all disease in autism. It's huge. So what we're going to be looking to do is reduce the inflammation, heal the gut, and get the body working well. So with that, guys, I am going to open it up to questions. All right, now I have to see how to look at the questions. All right, let's see. All right, window. This is the first time I've ever done a live training like this, so I am still figuring out how to work this software. All right. So I have the questions up here, and you can start typing them in now. Can everyone still hear me? Maybe that's a better question. Oh, yes, I can still hear you. Okay, cool. So, beautiful. Angela, yes, I can still hear you. Jay, yes, I can still hear you. Okay, cool. So now that you can still hear me, do you have any questions about what we went over? Okay, cool. Do you want me to, would you mind, Tracy, turning your camera on and we can see you, or would you prefer to type? There you are. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, nice to meet you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you give your son, I know I might be jumping ahead, fish oil, like gummies, like the DHA?
I do give my son fish oil. So I don't give him gummies. I give him it's like a liquid. It tastes like lemonade. That's what we call it. I'm like, hey, buddy, do you want your lemonade? And he loves it. And it's not perfect, but it's sweetened with xylitol. And I'm going to be, posting the brand and everything when we go over that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, because the reason why is because, in our diets, there's an imbalance of omega-6 fatty acids, which cause inflammation.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is shift that balance back. And that's, like the last thing I talked about, is reducing that inflammation. And fish oil is a very important part of that. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for being in. Okay. Great question. Is there any more? There we go. We can move across. Jay, that's actually the question I had. Look at you, Tracy. You're hitting the nail on the head there. Okay, cool. Yeah, fish oil. Do you promote detoxing? Okay, this is just jumping ahead a little bit, but my son won't swallow pills. My son can't swallow pills either. So it's just, I tried with the really, really small ones just like last week because that would make things a lot easier. But he doesn't. So what I do is I have, so my morning routine is I have a green juice that he's used to drinking, which helps get greens. And what I do is I make that like a super green juice cocktail type thing. And I dump vitamins into it. And I know this like sounds really crazy, but I actually take some of the pills that I can't get in chewable form or they're not capsules. And I will like crush them up with a spoon and dump the powder in. So I know that's a little extreme, and I'm actually looking to create, there's pill crushers. Oh man, I've like been smashing this with a spoon this whole time. And now you're telling me that there's pill crushers, Angela? My goodness, I'm gonna learn so much from you guys. I like almost break plates because I'm like smashing the spoon down. Yeah, so it's a combination. There's some chewables, there's some liquid. I use things to reduce inflammation like turmeric, and that comes in like drops. So I'll drop those into to the juice and things like that. All right, do I promote detoxing? I don't necessarily promote it, but if there's a body that's toxic, then I think it could be extremely beneficial, especially if there's major gut dysfunction or any type of like heavy metal toxicity. And there's some products out there. I haven't gone through any like real specific ones because I haven't had the need to, but I'm putting together a protocol with the help of some incredible nutritionists and biohackers that are helping me out to help come up with a protocol. I was just talking with a friend last night whose son, you know, the gut issues are so bad that they have worms and everything like that. So he was asking me to create a protocol for that. So I'm working with some specialists to put that together. But I think detoxing in general, if we help our body give it what it needs to detox, and there's like phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification of the body. We'll get into that a little bit later, but there's some supplements that I give my son that help with both phase 1 and phase 2. We want to help increase the amount of glutathione in the body, which helps their body, you know, get that Roomba vacuum to go in and flush that stuff out. And then, you know, in phase 2, there's other, you know, products that are really good for that. Yeah, no worries. Just something that I haven't come across. I haven't had to do it. I mean, I've done it for myself, like juice fasts and things like that, which are always interesting, but never with my son. Anything else? Is there anything else like problems that you guys are facing or things like that that you heard that I said we're going to be touching on that would be helpful for next time? Okay, cool. Well, guys, this has been fun. I really appreciate it. I realize what the time commitment is. I value your time, and trust me, I take this extremely seriously. So you commit your time with me, I'm going to, you know, spend the next week putting together the most amazing thing that I can for you guys. So I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you guys next week. And we'll be sending out emails just once again that will point you to the members area where the recording will be in there. And, you know, as we go along and we start recommending products and things like that and research, that'll all be in there. So, all right. Well, thank you, Angela. Thank you, guys. And we'll catch up with you next time. Now to figure out how to turn this off.